fascinating give and take there on the problems with this judicial philosophy. And that I think would be really interesting to see. I mean, I don't think most Americans have really had a chance to think about the pros and cons of things like textualism and originalism, following the text and original intent. Either people think it's good or it's bad, and there are problems with it. But a discussion would be very fascinating. I really hope they don't bring her religion. I really hope they don't focus on her religion. That's unfair.
Yeah, and Frank, we just want to bring up some of the kind of historic milestones that this nomination is presenting. If confirmed, Judge Coney Barrett would be the 5th woman confirmed on the Supreme Court. We're here in Phoenix, Arizona. The native Arizonan Sandra Day O'Connor. Our studios are right outside the federal courthouse, named after the first female Supreme Court justice. So this is quite a milestone, especially for a Republican president. The last time a Republican president nominated a woman was George W. Bush in 2005 with, the botched Harriet Miers nomination. And so that in and of itself is a milestone, let alone the fact that this is President Trump's 3rd nomination and only his first term. I kind of want to go through some of these details. Reagan had three nominations in his 2 terms. That was Justice Scalia, Justice O'Connor, and Justice Kennedy. Just doing some research, President Nixon had 4 justices confirmed in his time in office. So, presidents don't usually get this many nominations. They usually get 1 or 2, if that.
Yeah, that's pretty much the norm. I mean, usually you're going to see some have had none, but yeah, I mean, I think 1 or 2. Nixon had an unusually large number. Reagan had 3, but it was over 8 years. Barack Obama really should have had 3 had Merrick Garland been brought forward over 8 years. This would be 3 over 4 years, which is a very unusual, situation. But it is sort of is what it is. With Justice Ginsburg passing away, Justice Scalia passing away in 2019. So it's an unusual situation, but it's similar to what presidents who have had 2 terms have had in a few cases.
And Frank, I got to ask you as well here, how much do you think, say, back in 2013 or 2014, do you think there was a hard ask from the Obama administration, maybe to say to Ginsburg, will you eventually retire so President Obama could get another pick?
I've heard from colleagues who have maybe more knowledge on that. I've heard sort of a bit of both. I've heard that perhaps like Justice Kennedy did, that there would be some motion in that direction to talk to her about that. But I've heard from others that it actually didn't happen, that the respect for her, for obvious and very good reasons was so high that it just wasn't an ask that anybody was willing to make.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, obviously, whether the ask was made or not. Literally, this is just a guess. I don't think they probably would have requested it, but there might have been.
Frank, we actually have to go. I'm very sorry. Looks like the ceremony in the Rose Garden is starting. Thank you so much, Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I stand before you today to fulfill one of my highest and most important duties under the United States Constitution, the nomination of a Supreme Court Justice. This is my third such nomination after Justice Gorsuch and Justice Kavanaugh, and it is a very proud moment indeed. Over the past week, our nation has mourned the loss of a true American legend. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a legal giant and a pioneer for women. Her extraordinary life and legacy will inspire Americans for generations to come. Now we gather in the Rose Garden to continue our never-ending task of ensuring equal justice and preserving the impartial rule of law. Today it is my honor to nominate one of our nation's most brilliant and gifted legal minds to the Supreme Court. She is a woman of unparalleled achievement, towering intellect, sterling credentials, and unyielding loyalty to the Constitution, Judge Amy Coney Barrett. We're also joined by Amy's husband, Jesse. Thank you, Jesse, very much. And their 7 beautiful children. Congratulations to you all. Very special day. With us as well are the First Lady. Thank you, First Lady. Along with Vice President Mike Pence and his amazing wife, Karen. Thank you very much, Mike. Judge Barrett is a graduate of Rhodes College and the University of Notre Dame Law School. At Notre Dame, she earned a full academic scholarship, served as the executive editor of the Law Review, graduated first in her class, and received the law school's award for the best record of scholarship and achievement. Upon graduation, she became a clerk for Judge Lawrence Silberman on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. Amy then received one of the highest honors a young lawyer could have, serving as a clerk on the Supreme Court for Justice Antonin Scalia, a very highly respected law professor at Notre Dame wrote to Justice Scalia with a one-sentence recommendation: Amy Coney is the best student I ever had. That's pretty good. Justice Scalia hired her shortly thereafter, and we are honored to have his wonderful wife, Maureen. Where is Maureen? Maureen Scalia with us today. Thank you. And our great Secretary of Labor. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Very good genes in that family, I will say. Very good genes. Before joining the bench, Judge Barrett spent 15 years as a professor at the University of Notre Dame Law School. She was renowned for her scholarship, celebrated by her colleagues and beloved by her students. 3 times she was selected at Notre Dame Distinguished Professor of the Year. When I nominated Judge Barrett to serve on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 7th Circuit in 2017, every law clerk from her time at the Supreme Court endorsed her nomination, writing, quote, "We are Democrats, Republicans, and independents, yet we write to support the nomination of Professor Barrett to be a circuit judge. Professor Barrett is a woman of remarkable intellect and character. She is eminently qualified for the job. And I can tell you, I did that too. I looked and I studied, and you are very eminently qualified for this job. You are going to be fantastic. Thank you. Really fantastic. The entire Notre Dame law facility and faculty, everybody at that school also, we got so many letters, also wrote letters of support of Amy's nomination to the Seventh Circuit. They wrote, in effect, despite our differences, we unanimously agree that our constitutional system depends upon an independent judiciary staffed by talented people, devoted to the fair and impartial administration of the rule of law, and we unanimously agree that Amy is such a person. For the last 3 years, Judge Barrett has served with immense distinction on the federal bench. Amy is more than a stellar scholar and judge. She's also a profoundly devoted mother. Her family is a core part of who Amy is. She opened her home and her heart and adopted 2 beautiful children from Haiti. Her incredible bond with her youngest child, a son with Down syndrome, is a true inspiration. If confirmed, Justice Barrett will make history as the first mother of school-age children ever to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court. That's good. To her children, Emma, Vivian, Tess, John Peter, Liam, Juliet, and Benjamin, thank you for sharing your incredible mom with our country. Thank you very much. Amy Coney Barrett will decide cases based on the text of the Constitution as written. As Amy has said, being a judge takes courage. You are not there to decide cases as you may prefer. You are there to do your duty and to follow the law wherever it may take you. That is exactly what Judge Barrett will do on the U.S. Supreme Court. I want to thank the members of the Senate. We have so many of them here today. Thank you very much. I see you in the audience, and you're so proud. But I want to thank you for your commitment and to providing a fair and timely hearing. I know it will be that. Judge Barrett was confirmed to the Circuit Court 3 years ago by a bipartisan vote. Her qualifications are unsurpassed, and her record is beyond reproach. This should be a straightforward and prompt confirmation. Should be very easy. Good luck. It's going to be very quick. I'm sure it'll be extremely non-controversial. We said that the last time, didn't we? Well, thank you all very much, and thank you for being here. That's really great. Thank you. Thank you. I further urge all members of the other side of the aisle to provide Judge Barrett with the respectful and dignified hearing that she deserves, and frankly, that our country deserves. I urge lawmakers and members of the media to refrain from personal or partisan attacks, and the stakes for our country are incredibly high. Rulings that the Supreme Court will issue in the coming years will decide the survival of our Second Amendment, our religious liberty, our public safety, and so much more. To maintain security, liberty, and prosperity, we must preserve our priceless heritage of a nation of laws, and there is no one better to do that than Amy Coney Barrett. Law and order is the foundation of the American system of justice. No matter the issue, no matter the case before her, I am supremely confident that Judge Barrett will issue rulings based solely upon a fair reading of the law. She will defend the sacred principle of equal justice for citizens of every race, color, religion, and creed. Congratulations again to Judge Barrett. I know that you will make our country very, very proud. Please, Amy, say a few words. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I am deeply honored by the confidence that you have placed in me. And I am so grateful to you and the First Lady, to the Vice President and the Second Lady, and to so many others here for your kindness on this rather overwhelming occasion. I fully understand that this is a momentous decision for a president. And if the Senate does me the honor of confirming me, I pledge to discharge the responsibilities of this job to the very best of my ability. I love the United States, and I love the United States Constitution. I am truly humbled by the prospect of serving on the Supreme Court. Should I be confirmed, I will be mindful of who came before me. The flag of the United States is still flying at half-staff in memory of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg to mark the end of a great American life. Justice Ginsburg began her career at a time when women were not welcome in the legal profession. But she not only broke glass ceilings, she smashed them. For that, she has won the admiration of women across the country and indeed all over the world. Yes. She was a woman of enormous talent and consequence, and her life of public service serves as an example to us all. Particularly poignant to me was her long and deep friendship with Justice Antonin Scalia, my own mentor. Justices Scalia and Ginsburg disagreed fiercely in print without rancor in person. Their ability to maintain a warm and rich friendship, despite their differences, even inspired an opera. These two great Americans demonstrated that arguments, even about matters of great consequence, need not destroy affection. In both my personal and professional relationships, I strive to meet that standard. I was lucky enough to clerk for Justice Scalia, and given his incalculable influence on my life, I am very moved to have members of the Scalia family here today, including his dear wife, Maureen. I clerked for Justice Scalia more than 20 years ago, but the lessons I learned still resonate. His judicial philosophy is mine too. A judge must apply the law as written. Judges are not policymakers, and they must be resolute in setting aside any policy views they might hold. The President has asked me to become the 9th Justice, and as it happens, I'm used to being in a group of 9, my family. Our family includes me, my husband Jesse, Emma, Vivian, Tess, John Peter, Liam, Juliet, and Benjamin. Vivian and John Peter, as the President said, were born in Haiti, and they came to us 5 years apart when they were very young. And the most revealing fact about Benjamin, our youngest, is that his brothers and sisters unreservedly identify him as their favorite sibling. Our children obviously make our life very full. While I am a judge, I'm better known back home as a room parent, carpool driver, and birthday party planner. When schools went remote last spring, I tried on another hat. Jesse and I became co-principals of the Barrett e-learning academy. And yes, the list of enrolled students was a very long one. Our children are my greatest joy, even though they deprive me of any reasonable amount of sleep. I couldn't manage this very full life without the unwavering support of my husband, Jesse. At the start of our marriage, I imagined that we would run our household as partners. As it has turned out, Jesse does far more than his share of the work. To my chagrin, I learned at dinner recently that my children consider him to be the better cook. For 21 years, Jesse has asked me every single morning what he can do for me that day. And though I almost always say nothing, he still finds ways to take things off my plate. And that's not because he has a lot of free time. He has a busy law practice. It's because he is a superb and generous husband, and I am very fortunate. Jesse and I have a life full of relationships, not only with our children, but with siblings, friends, and fearless babysitters, one of whom is with us today. I am particularly grateful to my parents, Mike and Linda Coney. I have spent the bulk of my adulthood as a Midwesterner, but I grew up in their New Orleans home. And as my brother and sisters can also attest, Mom and Dad's generosity extends not only to us, but to more people than any of us could count. They are an inspiration. It is important at a moment like this to acknowledge family and friends. But this evening, I also want to acknowledge you, my fellow Americans. The President has nominated me to serve on the United States Supreme Court, and that institution belongs to all of us. If confirmed, I would not assume that role for the sake of those in my own circle, and certainly not for my own sake. I would assume this role to serve you. I would discharge the judicial oath, which requires me to administer justice without respect to persons, do equal right to the poor and rich, and faithfully and impartially discharge my duties under the United States Constitution. I have no illusions that the road ahead of me will be easy, either for the short term or the long haul. I never imagined that I would find myself in this position. But now that I am, I assure you that I will meet the challenge with both humility. Members of the United States Senate, I look forward to you during the confirmation process, and I will do my very best to demonstrate that I am worthy of your support. Thank you.
Come on up, family. Come on up, family. I want to acknowledge Attorney General Bill Barr being here. Chief of Staff, thank you very much, Chief. You're doing a great job. And all of the senators, please, we really appreciate it. And I know you're going to have a busy couple of weeks, but I think it's going to be easier than you might think. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you all. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Congratulations, Amy.
All right, for those of you watching, you have just seen the President Donald Trump nominate his third Supreme Court pick. That's Judge Amy Coney Barrett right there, speaking from the podium. The President saying she has an unyielding loyalty to the U.S. Constitution, and also kind of tongue-in-cheek saying, I'm sure it'll be non-controversial, easy, and quick, alluding obviously to the 2018 confirmation hearings of his previous nominee, Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Then you heard Judge Barrett herself say she loves the U.S. Constitution. She says also giving a nod to late Justice Ginsburg that she is mindful of who came before me, saying Justice Ginsburg not only broke the glass ceiling for women in the legal profession, but shattered it.
Yeah, because Ginsburg was coming up in an era where, well, wasn't really welcomed. Wasn't welcomed like this at all.
That's right.
Like the approach that we're seeing now and in this country here.
That's right. And Mike, a lot of notable luminaries in the audience there that we just wanted to highlight for some of those watching. Maureen Scalia, the widow of the late Justice Antonin Scalia, her son Eugene Scalia, who now serves as the President's Secretary of Labor. Lots of senators there that obviously Judge Coney Barrett will be having to court in the next coming days. You're seeing Senator Mike Lee of Utah, Senator Loeffler of Georgia, Senator Hawley of Missouri. There's the Attorney General Bill Barr in the shot right there. Fox sources are confirming that the target date for Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to start these proceedings will be October 12th. Obviously, that's not fixed. Things could change. Things could possibly be a little later. But we wanted to go back to Michigan State University law professor Frank Ravitch. Frank, tell us kind of your thoughts after you just witnessed President Trump's third pick for the Supreme Court.
A statement that she's cognizant of who she's following. And what's interesting about that, one of my, really maybe my favorite justice in the modern American era is Justice David Souter, who was very influenced by following Justice Brennan. And it may have really, I think that coming into those shoes really affected in some ways the way he viewed his role. I don't think it necessarily affected his decisions, but he was cognizant of that. So I found that to be really a powerful part of what she said. As I said before, her judicial philosophy I think is open to question, but she really, I think, pointing out the connection between Justices Ginsburg and Scalia, that you don't have to agree with each other to like each other. That's something that today we really need in this country. So I found her speech, again, I still have my issues as a scholar with some of her judicial philosophies, but it was, I thought, a very powerful speech by a very brilliant person.
That's right, Frank. And just to give some of the viewers kind of the layout of what they were seeing, we saw pictures earlier this morning. Judge Coney Barrett and her family traveling from South Bend, Indiana, her 7 children in tow. She has 2 children she adopted with her husband from Haiti, and her husband is a former U.S. Assistant attorney from the Northern District of Indiana. But let's focus in really on one of the major issues at hand that a lot of people are talking about with this nomination, and that's the precedent of Roe v. Wade. We were talking about stare decisis before. She said Roe v. Wade wasn't one of those 10 cases she would adopt under the guise of stare decisis. She did say that there was 10 major cases, that she wouldn't do anything just because of the long-standing precedent. But Roe v. Wade was not one of them. She's personally said she believes life begins at conception, obviously, like every Catholic believes. And we saw a lot of abortion cases in the last session come to the Supreme Court. So what can we expect with her if confirmed?
Well, she's been noted for suggesting that, she might roll back or that Roe would be rolled back, as has been happening with the current court through a variety of upholding state measures that would limit Roe. It depends on whether she does what she wrote or doesn't. I mean, she wrote that a justice who can't decide a case without their moral preconceptions completely influencing the outcome should recuse themselves. So if a case was up where Roe v. Wade might be overturned, perhaps if she follows what she wrote, she would recuse herself. But certainly I do think that she telegraphed the possibility of overturning it in that law review article I mentioned from the University of Texas, where she said there's not a duty to follow precedent in constitutional cases, and I think it's I think it's something that should be a concern and a focus in the hearings, but she also has said maybe someone in that position should recuse themselves. So it's hard to say.
Well, Frank, and also, justices don't always side, obviously, with the president that nominated them. I mean, we saw that with Justice Kavanaugh and Justice Gorsuch just this year with the president's case with his tax records. We saw that with Chief Justice John Roberts, who, maybe we can talk about that, is causing concern amongst conservatives as if he really does side all the time with conservative jurisprudence. We saw him be the fifth vote in a lot of cases this term.
Yeah, it's interesting. Justice Roberts models himself, his sort of judicial, he clerked for Justice Rehnquist, but his judicial sort of idol, the person that he looks up to the most judicially, is Justice Jackson. And so, it's not surprising to see him trying to find a certain amount of balance while still being relatively a strict constructionist and so forth. Judge Barrett, being a sort of a Justice Scalia acolyte, is less likely to be as open to non-originalist approaches. And as I mentioned, sometimes we don't know original intent, so following it can just be a cover-up for other things. But that also led Justice Scalia to some surprising, if you think of things in purely political terms, decisions. He was a very strong advocate of the writ of habeas corpus for criminal defendants. Mm-hmm. His decision in Hamdi v. Rumsfeld, on the Guantanamo Bay and the writ of habeas corpus there. So, she may have some surprises in some areas that are similar to that, but I doubt she's going to have the sort of broader pragmatic perspective that Justice Roberts has.
All right, and Frank, we just want to go to some reaction from a lot of public officials right now. You're getting a tweet right now up on your screen from the Democratic nominee Joe Biden saying, "Today President Trump nominated Judge Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court, a jurist with a written track record of disagreeing with the court's decision to uphold the Affordable Care Act. Vote like your health care is on the ballot, because it is." Now, Frank, that is quite prescient, because obviously we know arguments are going to start November 10th at the High Court. Obviously the Trump administration is trying to invalidate the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, Judge Barrett wrote an article, it was actually a book review of another well-known legal scholar's book, but it was pretty much an attack, or part of it was an attack on Justice Roberts' opinion for the majority for the court in the Affordable Care Act case, and his use of the taxing power there. So there is, in a sense, she's telegraphed the possibility that she would be very open to overturning it. So I think that may be what Vice President Biden was referring to when he's pointing out that she does have a track record of disagreeing with the Affordable Care Act. It was based on that law review article, or really a book review, where she really does say that.
All right, Frank, we're also getting a reaction as well from Joe Biden's running mate, Senator Kamala Harris.
This is what Kamala Harris just put it out, saying Trump's handpicked successor to Justice Ginsburg's seat makes it clear they intend to destroy the Affordable Care Act and overturn Roe versus Wade. This selection would move the court further right for a generation and harm millions of Americans. I strongly oppose Judge Barrett's nomination. So we know how that vote will be for that committee hearing.
Yeah, I think that's pretty, pretty clear. She is going to move the court further to the right, and yeah, I would not expect that Kamala Harris, Senator Harris, would support Judge Barrett. And at least as to the Affordable Care Act, I think that there is a pretty good reason to believe there's nothing before the court now that would lead to the overturning of Roe at this moment, but there is on the Affordable Care Act, and there is reason to believe that she would potentially vote to overturn or to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. This is going to play out in a very interesting fashion when this comes before the Senate. Mitch McConnell has really set this up in a way that I think the other issue is going to be, you didn't move forward with Merrick Garland. Why are you moving forward with this? That was 9 months before an election. This is 2 months. It's the same party thing. There's no precedent for that. I think that both, and maybe some Republicans will focus on that as well. This is just not the time for it. But Barrett's speech itself, I thought, was very impressive.
All right, Frank Ravitch, we want to thank you. Mike, do you have one more question for him?
Yeah, Frank, I just wanted to ask you, the suburban women vote is going to be a huge vote to get for either Joe Biden or President Trump. And we learned today with the Judge Amy Barrett that if she is confirmed, she'll be the first one to have, a family still in school right now, and really a working mom and dad. So how much does that play into the role of Republicans liking that fact, but also Democrats really got to do a fine line again, because there's going to be those suburban women voters that are like, well, wait, don't be so hard on her.
And they see themselves a little bit in Judge Amy Barrett, right?
Well, I think we saw that with the cross-examination of Anita Hill back in the Clarence Thomas hearings. I think that everybody, I hope, has learned from that sexism, misogynism, it's not appropriate in a hearing. And I think if they do, I don't think it's going to happen, but if there is this sort of this wouldn't be asked if you weren't a woman sort of question, I think that is going to be something from either party that people are going to look at, and it's going to I think affect people. So at least certainly for the Senate races, but I suspect that that's probably not going to happen. But it is there. Look at the Clarence Thomas hearings and how that played out. So it is something that I think both. If I was a senator, I would hope I wasn't a you don't want a misogynist or a sexist to be a senator, but I don't think that that would be an appropriate thing to attack. I think again, I disagree with her judicial philosophy, but I think she's an amazing human being. I wouldn't support her for the Supreme Court because of her judicial philosophy, but she's an amazing human being. And if they go after her,
that's right.
That's sad.
And we'll leave it at that. Frank Ravitch, professor of law at Michigan State University, thanks for joining us this afternoon for this special coverage. And we want to thank everyone watching right now as well, who just saw President Trump nominate his third Supreme Court pick, Judge Amy Coney Barrett, to the bench. And now it's all comes down to the Senate and Mitch McConnell, and when this will be up to a floor vote in the full Senate, Mike.
And it's just beginning. This is just the first part, right? So we got the nomination, and now comes the hearings, and this is the world that we're living in right now, that it's so partisan. You're going to see a lot of back and forth between the senators and Amy, and once again, it's going to be must-see TV, just like how Kavanaugh was, just how Gorsuch was. This is just kind of the world that we're living in now.
That's right, Mike. 38 days till the election. The first presidential debate, we want to preview that for you, is on Tuesday. We're going to do continuing coverage of that. Our own Fox News Sunday's Chris Wallace will be hosting that first presidential debate. And the first matchup between President Trump and Joe Biden, obviously that's must-see TV as well. And we want to thank everyone for watching today on this Saturday afternoon. We're here in Phoenix, Arizona. Appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. So have a great day, everybody, and watch on newsnowfox.com come Tuesday. That will be a big event there, the first night of that presidential debate. A lot of people want to see that. So thank you so much for joining us here today. Live look right there at the White House, where history was once again made at the Rose Garden. Thank you so much for joining us here today on News Now from Fox. And now we'll show you some coverage from around the country on News Now from Fox.
School year with COVID-19, a simple sniffle could create a major headache.
So should you be sending your child to school if they have a runny nose or maybe a cough, or should they stay home? It's becoming a daily battle for parents. I know I have thought about this. We've got kids in daycare. We wonder, what is it? Joining us live with much needed advice, Dr. Andrea Singh, a pediatrician from Park Nicollet Clinic. Good morning, doctor. Thank you for being with us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Okay, we know the start of the school year, this time of year, we seem to see an uptick in just kind of the colds, the coughs. Obviously, kids are getting back close to each other, but this is a different year. So how can we tell the difference, and how do we know when something's maybe more than just a sniffle?
Yeah, it's going to be a really tricky school year, that's for sure. The average child gets about 6 to 8 colds. Every elementary age school child gets 6 to 8 colds in normal winter, and this winter is putting a lot of variables out there that we've never dealt with before. The truth is, we're not going to know if it's a cold or if it's COVID. And so this year, the bottom line is going to be kids stay home if they're sick and get checked out by their family clinician.
Okay, so if you can, let's get a little bit more specific though with symptoms, because I know it's complicated because a lot of them mimic the cold and COVID. So if your child, for instance, has a runny nose or maybe sore throat, should they be staying at home?
Good question. Those are two different symptoms. And so the MDH did come out with guidelines that help parents, teachers, schools, child care workers figure this out. So a runny nose by itself without any other symptoms may not require your child to stay home. However, a sore throat and a runny nose together would be 2 symptoms, and that's going to mean that school is going to want your child to get checked out.
Okay, so almost
really
if
complicated.
you have 2 symptoms. We know obviously a high temp. That was a red flag to keep your kid home, pre-COVID. That was always kind of a, nope, okay, something's going on here. But any other ones that are just a definite, keep them home, get them checked out?
There's a list of what they call common symptoms that one symptom would keep your child home. So fever is on that list, as well as cough, difficulty breathing, and lack of sense of smell or taste. So those alone would be a reason that your child has to stay home. And then there's a list of lesser symptoms. So things like the runny nose by itself, nausea, stomach ache, headache, that you have to kind of look at them in context.
Okay, so we're also in a time of the year where a lot of kids are dealing with allergies. And again, those can kind of mimic a cold or even maybe COVID. So what should we be looking out for if we know our child has allergies?
Yep, I think if you know your child has allergies, then you're going to do everything you normally do in a regular season to be on top of those. So if your child normally takes an antihistamine once they get a runny nose, you might want to be proactive with that and say, okay, well, usually in the fall, in September, my child gets allergy symptoms from the pollen, so I'm going to start with that antihistamine. You want to make sure that they're changing their clothes frequently when they go outside, things like that. And then you're also going to watch really closely to say, is anything different than the normal runny nose symptom, allergy symptom that they get? And are they responding to the normal path you take, the normal medications that you give for allergies? Because if they're not, they should get checked out.
I want to pick your brain for a second. As a parent of 2 young kids, you mentioned this is going to be a different year. This is going to be a year where everybody's going to have to kind of have their head on a swivel, I guess, if you could say. What would be your advice to parents? You thinking about this, okay, you wake up on a Tuesday and they have a runny nose and you've got to make that call right there. What's your advice for parents who are already kind of stressed out about this and maybe they don't have any reason to be at this point, but just knowing that it's going to have to change instantly?
Right. I think part of it is just that what you just mentioned, that we're going to have to realize there's going to be some flexibility involved. I have two young kids in school myself, and definitely if they wake up with a runny nose in the morning, I'm going to think about keeping them home that day and seeing if that runny nose gets better or if it seems to get worse or if new symptoms come. The good news with what the schools have created in terms of their learning plans so far this year is that everybody has some distance options. So they can stay home from school and not necessarily miss school because of all the virtual options that we have.
Yeah, and don't forget the flu shot too. That's
Right.
important.
Exactly.
Dr. Andrea Singh, thank you so much. Good luck to you and your two kiddos as well. It's, yeah.
Yeah, good information. And can be very confusing. You can understand why.
Yeah.
time
Well,
of
I
year.
mean, we've talked about it even as an adult. You cough out in public and you're like, no, I'm okay. And it's the same thing. I hear my daughter cough and I'm like, what? What's wrong with you? You know, like, ah.
I had that at Target yesterday. Ooh.
Yeah.
I was like, I've got to get out of here. And I was in a long line. I'm like, I just kept looking around saying, I'm not sick.
Senator
I gotta
Boxer
go.
joins us now from Palm
Right.
Springs. As a Trojan myself, welcome back to The Issue Is and fight on.
Okay. I'm always fighting.
Yeah, that is true. A long record of fighting on, Senator. Good to see you. Let's start, though, by honoring Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This is a justice that you voted to confirm. I'm sure she was an inspiration to you in so many different fronts. What did she mean to you?
She meant a lot to the female senators on both sides of the aisle because she experienced so much discrimination. I was about 8 years behind her, and I also experienced it, but not quite as bad as hers, but pretty bad. And the fact that she understood what it feels like to be treated in an unequal fashion, having graduated at the top of her class, could not get a job, in a top law firm, being told by the dean of the law school, why are you here? You're taking a spot up where men would have that seat. She carried in her heart the pain of that. So, whether you're experiencing inequality because you're a woman or because of the color of your skin or your religion, your ethnicity, who you love, all of that to her was equal. In other words, we all have to be equal one to the other.
Yeah, and I'm sure as a Jewish American woman, it was nice to see somebody as well. And also, who's taller between you two?
It's so funny. When she came to my office way back when Clinton nominated her, I loved her immediately because we looked eye to eye. We were about the same size. I'm barely 5 feet. She was barely 5 feet. She was from Brooklyn. I was from Brooklyn. And I'll tell you a cute story. When I left the Senate, I retired. I gave practically all of my artifacts and memorabilia to Don't Boo, to UC Berkeley. And I kept just a couple of artifacts that I wanted to have in the house. And here's one of them right here. Can you see it?
Oh, nice. That's very cool.
I have Ruth standing next to Rosie the Riveter as a reminder of, the battles that she fought, that I fought. It's really impossible to describe the loss.
Yeah.
Because it's like the loss of John Lewis. When you lose someone who, really felt the sting of this discrimination, you know that they have such authenticity that they can really change minds. And one of Ruth's goals was to change minds, and she was able to do that.
She was confirmed 93-7. Whatever happens next, it's not going to be 93-7. There's such a different world now. There are reports at the time of taping this that the president is going to nominate Amy Coney Barrett to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who ideologically could not be more the opposite. What do you make of that choice?
Well, it's hard to say. It's like filling the seat of a civil rights icon with someone who, really doesn't care about it. And look, all of the people on Trump's list were vetted by the Federalist Society. And the Federalist Society is not interested in having a national government that really makes life better for people. It's just, you're going to read the Constitution. You're not going to interpret it in any other way than what it says. And when it suits your needs, you'll always come down on the side of, doing less. And I think what Ruth's life was about was that there has to be a level playing field. You're not going to have equality just because you think it's the right thing. You're going to have to change laws. You're going to have to interpret laws so that we can fulfill the promise of our Constitution. We, the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice. That was the first goal of the Constitution. Imagine. So for this justice, Ruth Ginsburg, to be replaced by someone who doesn't see the world that way,